At 12:13 a.m., my phone buzzed in the dark. It was my son. His voice was shaking. "Dad, turn off every light. Go to the attic. Lock the door. And whatever you do, don't let your daughter or her husband know I called." My heart dropped. My son worked for the FBI. He was not the kind of man who panicked. If he sounded afraid, something was very wrong. I did exactly what he said. A little later, I looked through a crack in the attic floor. What I saw changed my life forever. Before I tell you what happened, welcome to Betrayal Revenge Stories. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 67 years old. For 42 years, I restored damaged paintings. People brought me torn canvases, faded portraits, and broken artwork. My job was to see what other people missed. A tiny crack. A hidden repair. A brush stroke that didn't belong. I spent my life finding the truth beneath the surface. I never imagined those skills would one day save me from my own family. My wife, Grace, and I lived in a beautiful old Victorian house on Oak Street. We bought it 30 years ago. We raised our children there. Every room held memories. Every corner reminded me of the life we built together. Then 8 months ago, Grace died from cancer. The house became unbearably quiet. The silence felt heavy. Sometimes I would walk into a room and expect to see her smiling at me. Instead, there was nothing. Just empty space. My daughter, Emily, noticed how lonely I had become. 6 months after Grace died, she came to visit with her husband, Ryan. We sat around the kitchen table. Sunlight poured through the windows Grace loved so much. Emily reached across the table and held my hand. "Dad," she said softly, "you shouldn't be alone in this big house." Ryan nodded. "Our lease ends soon anyway," he said. "What if we move in for a while? We can help you." Emily squeezed my hand. "You've done everything for us. Let us take care of you now." I should have noticed something. I should have paid attention when she said I was getting older. But I was lonely, and she was my daughter. So I said yes. A week later they moved in. At first everything felt wonderful. The house had life again. People talked during dinner. Someone laughed in the living room. For the first time since Grace died, I didn't feel completely alone. Emily cooked meals. Ryan helped with bills. They always asked if I needed anything. At first it seemed caring. Then it became strange. Everywhere I turned they were watching me. "Did you take your medicine? Are you feeling okay? Did you sleep well?" Then Emily started giving me pills. "They're vitamins," she explained. "The doctor wants you taking them." I didn't remember seeing any doctor. But she sounded so sure. So loving. So concerned. I trusted her. Every night I swallowed one. And every day I felt worse. My thoughts became slow. I forgot simple things. Sometimes I walked into a room and couldn't remember why. Sometimes I stared at a painting I had worked on for years and it felt unfamiliar. I started wondering if I was losing my mind. Then the visions began. One night, I woke up and saw Grace standing in our bedroom. She wore the blue dress she had been buried in. She looked sad. Heartbroken. She didn't speak. She only stared at me. I nearly collapsed. "Grace," I whispered. She didn't move. Then Emily suddenly appeared beside me. "Dad? What's wrong?" I looked back. Grace was gone. Emily guided me to bed. "It was only a dream," she said. "The mind plays tricks." Then she smiled. "That's why you need your vitamins." The next morning I felt worse than ever. My head was foggy. Nothing felt real. I went into the kitchen looking for coffee. While searching, I knocked a stack of papers onto the floor. As I picked them up, one page caught my attention. My hands started shaking. At the top was my name. Harold Bennett. Age 67. Below it were boxes. Hallucinations. Paranoia. Memory loss. Unable to care for self. Danger to self or others. It was a psychiatric evaluation form. Someone had already filled in all my personal information. Someone was preparing paperwork to declare me mentally incompetent. I stood frozen. The coffee machine bubbled behind me. Morning sunlight filled the room. And suddenly nothing felt safe anymore. Who was doing this? What? I wanted to believe there had been some mistake. But deep down I knew there wasn't. And that terrified me. There was a time when Emily was my whole world. I remembered her as a little girl sitting beside me in my studio. She loved watching me restore paintings. One afternoon she watched me repair a damaged portrait. After I finished, she clapped excitedly. "Daddy," she asked, "why do you fix broken paintings?" I smiled. "Because everything deserves a second chance." She wrapped her arms around my neck. "You're the best dad ever." Back then I believed every word. Years passed. Emily grew up, went to college, built her own life. Then she met Ryan. She called him charming. successful, smart, the perfect man. When I first met him, he seemed polite, friendly, confident. But looking back, I noticed things. He always asked about money, about investments, about property values, about retirement savings. At the time, I ignored it. I only cared that Emily seemed happy. After Grace died, I became vulnerable. That was when Emily and Ryan moved in. And little by little, my life stopped belonging to me. Ryan took control of my bills. Emily handled my medications. Every decision slowly passed into their hands. I barely noticed it happening. Until the cameras appeared. At first, Ryan installed one near the front door. Just for security, he said. Then another appeared in the living room. Then the hallway. Then the kitchen. Then upstairs. Eventually, cameras seemed to be everywhere. I felt watched all the time. One day I discovered a camera hidden near my bathroom. That made my stomach twist. Why do we need one there? I asked. Ryan smiled. What if you fall? His tone sounded patient, like he was speaking to a child. I hated it, but my mind felt too foggy to argue. Later I realized something strange. There were no cameras in their bedroom. None in their private bathroom. Only in my spaces. Only where I lived. Only where I could be watched. That was when suspicion truly started growing. A few days later I tried calling an old friend. Ryan appeared immediately. Who are you calling? George, I answered. Ryan took the phone from my hand. Maybe later. He never gave it back. 2 days after that, my son called. His name is Noah Bennett. He works for the FBI. We spoke every week. When his name appeared on my phone, I smiled. But Ryan grabbed it before I could answer. He rejected the call, then slipped my phone into his pocket. Noah is busy, he said. He doesn't need to worry about you. I sat there speechless. My own son was calling me. And my son-in-law decided I wasn't allowed to answer. That night I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. The next morning I accidentally found paperwork on Ryan's desk. My signature was at the bottom. But I didn't remember signing it. The document mentioned account access, legal authority, control. My chest tightened. How many things had I signed while drugged and confused? How much control had I already given away? I needed answers. That night, Emily brought me another vitamin. For the first time, I didn't swallow it. I hid it under my tongue. When she left, I spit it into my hand. The next day, I tested it. I dropped the pill into water. Instead of dissolving like a vitamin, it turned into gray sludge. I compared it with a real vitamin. The difference was obvious. The gray pill was not normal. Not even close. Fear turned into anger. I opened my laptop and started researching. Drug-induced hallucinations. Confusion. Memory problems. Elder abuse. Every symptom matched what I was experiencing. Every single one. I wasn't losing my mind. Someone was making me look insane. And that someone was living in my house. One afternoon, Emily and Ryan left for errands. The moment their car disappeared, I moved. Ryan had turned Grace's old sewing room into his office. I entered quietly. Inside were folders. Medical. Estate. Insurance. I opened the medical folder. My blood ran cold. There was a brochure for a place called Greenwood Behavioral Center. A psychiatric facility. A place for people declared unable to care for themselves. Underneath the brochure was paperwork. My paperwork. My name. My age. My address. And several boxes were already checked. Hallucinations. Paranoia. Delusions. Someone had marked them in blue ink. Someone was building a case against me. Someone planned to lock me away. I took pictures with an old phone. Then carefully put everything back. When I returned to the living room, I felt different. The fear was still there. But now anger was stronger. I finally knew the truth. This wasn't concern. This wasn't love. This was a plan. And I was the target. That afternoon, my neighbor visited. Her name was Margaret Cole. She had been friends with Grace for years. She arrived carrying a casserole dish. But the moment she looked at me, her face changed. Harold, she said quietly, are you okay? Something in her voice made me want to tell the truth. Margaret had worked as a nurse for decades. She studied me carefully. You don't look right, she said. You seem heavily medicated. I glanced toward the cameras. She noticed them too. Her expression hardened. Before I could answer, the front door opened. Emily and Ryan were home. Emily's smile disappeared when she saw Margaret. Dad needs rest, she said quickly. Margaret didn't move. The tension filled the room. Finally, she turned toward the door. As she passed me, she whispered, If you need help, I'm only 2 houses away. Then she left. After the door closed, Emily looked at me sharply. Dad, don't tell neighbors about your episodes. Episodes? That word hit me hard. They were already telling people I was unstable. They were building a story. A story where I was the confused old man. And they were the loving caregivers. That night, after pretending to take another pill, I lay awake thinking. Then I remembered something. Months earlier, Noah had given me a secret phone. A backup phone. Keep it hidden, he had said. Just in case. At the time, I thought he was being overly cautious. Now I understood. And for the first time, I realized I might need it. At 12:13 a.m., the hidden phone suddenly buzzed. I jumped. My heart pounded as I grabbed it. The screen showed one name. Noah. I answered immediately. Dad. His voice sounded tense. Listen carefully. You're in danger. I know, I whispered. They've been drugging me. There was silence for a moment. Then Noah spoke. I've been investigating Ryan for 3 months. The room felt colder. What? Ryan isn't who he says he is. My stomach dropped. Noah continued. His real name isn't Ryan Carter. He's used multiple identities. He's a professional con artist. He targets elderly people with money. I sat down heavily. Everything suddenly made sense. The pills. The cameras. The paperwork. The isolation. It wasn't random. It was planned. Dad, Noah said, they're trying to have you committed. I found the paperwork. I know. But there's more. Once you're declared incompetent, they'll control everything. My house. Yes. My savings. Yes. My paintings. All of it. I closed my eyes. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Can you arrest him? Noah sighed. I can't. You're my father. Conflict of interest. Another agent is building the case, but we need more evidence. How much time? 2 weeks. My heart sank. 2 weeks felt impossible. Dad, Noah said firmly, don't let them know you're suspicious. Keep acting confused. Watch them. Record everything. I can do that. Good. And stay in the attic. Ryan never installed cameras there. After the call ended, I sat in silence. Then I moved toward the attic window. And what I saw an hour later terrified me. 2 dark vehicles rolled into my driveway with their headlights off. 3 men climbed out. They moved quickly. Professionally. Like they had done this before. Then Ryan opened the front door. And let them inside. I watched from above. The men went directly to my study. Directly to my safe. They knew exactly where everything was. Within minutes they removed documents. Property deeds. Financial records. Legal papers. Then they disappeared. When they finally left, I crept downstairs. Half the contents of my safe were gone. Ryan had stolen them. And gone back to bed like nothing happened. That was the moment something changed inside me. I stopped feeling afraid. I started feeling angry. Very angry. The next morning I almost got caught. Emily entered my room unexpectedly. Dad, she asked, were you talking to someone? The backup phone was hidden inches away. I forced myself to look confused. No. She stared at me. Studied me. For several uncomfortable seconds. Then she finally left. The moment the door closed, I buried the phone deeper inside my wardrobe. That had been too close. Far too close. Later that day I went to the attic studio. The room held my life's work. Paintings lined every wall. And among them stood my favorite. A portrait of Grace. I had painted it 30 years earlier. She looked beautiful. Calm. Kind. Alive. As I stared at the painting, an idea suddenly appeared. A dangerous idea. But maybe exactly what I needed. I noticed a tiny gap between attic floorboards. When I looked through it, I could see part of the living room below. Emily and Ryan were sitting on the sofa. Ryan was counting large stacks of cash. Emily looked nervous. I couldn't hear them. But I could see enough to know something serious was happening. I needed audio. I needed proof. Then I looked at Grace's portrait. It had hung above the fireplace for years. Facing the sofa. Facing the entire room. A perfect location. That evening, I carefully installed a tiny hidden camera inside the painting. The lens looked through a pin-sized opening hidden inside Grace's painted eye. When I finished, I carried the portrait downstairs. Emily smiled. Mom looks beautiful. She always did, I replied. She had no idea her mother would soon expose everything. That night I sat in the attic watching the camera feed. At 9:47 p.m., motion activated. Emily and Ryan entered the living room. They sat directly beneath Grace's portrait. I started recording. Then Ryan spoke. How much longer until we move the old man to Greenwood? My blood turned cold. Emily took a sip of wine. Are you sure the doctor will cooperate? Ryan laughed. I paid him $50,000. 50,000. To declare me mentally incompetent. I kept listening. Then Emily said something that shattered my heart. I'm tired of pretending to care. The words hit harder than any punch. Pretending. Every hug. Every smile. Every kind word. All fake. All lies. Ryan continued. Once Harold is gone, we'll have access to everything. Emily laughed. Not bad for 6 months of playing the devoted daughter. Tears filled my eyes. I barely recognized the woman speaking. This wasn't my little girl anymore. Or maybe it never had been. Then Emily's phone rang. She walked away and answered quietly. I love you too. I froze. She came back moments later. Ryan asked, Your mother? Emily nodded. Yeah. A lie. Grace was dead. So who had Emily just told she loved? That question stayed in my head all night. The next morning Margaret arrived. This time she came with a purpose. We sat together in the attic. She told me about her sister. Years earlier, her sister had been placed in a psychiatric facility by relatives who wanted money. Within months she died. Margaret never forgave herself. Then I showed her part of the recording. Ryan discussing money. Emily admitting she was pretending. Margaret's face turned red with anger. She immediately believed me. Then she handed me something. A notebook. Inside were months of observations. Dates. Times. Behavior. Evidence. She had documented everything. Then she gave me a key. My house is always open, she said. If you need somewhere safe. For the first time in months I felt less alone. But the danger was growing. That night the hidden camera recorded another conversation. And this one was worse. Much worse. Emily and Ryan discussed moving me to Greenwood earlier than planned. Not next week. Not in several days. Saturday. Only 2 days away. They planned to accuse me of attacking Emily. They would fake injuries. Fake evidence. Then have me committed immediately. I sat staring at the screen. No one needed 2 weeks. I only had 48 hours. The next day I researched Greenwood Behavioral Center. The deeper I dug, the uglier it became. Lawsuits. Complaints. Families losing everything. Elderly people heavily drugged. Money disappearing. Assets transferred. Homes stolen. Lives destroyed. One victim had lost over $2 million. Another lost everything she owned. Again and again one name appeared. Dr. Gerald Russo. The same doctor evaluating me. The same Dr. Ryan had bribed. This wasn't a hospital. It was a machine designed to steal from vulnerable people. Then something happened that changed everything. The hidden camera activated. A man entered my living room. Tall. Expensive suit. Confident. Dangerous. Emily rushed toward him. And kissed him. Passionately. My stomach twisted. This wasn't Ryan. This was someone else. I turned up the volume. Everything is ready for Saturday? The man asked. Emily nodded. Yes. Then the truth exploded. Ryan wasn't the mastermind. He wasn't even the final winner. The stranger smiled. $3.5 million will be transferred within 48 hours. Emily grinned. And Ryan? The man laughed. Ryan's name is on all the paperwork. If things go wrong, he goes to prison. I stared in disbelief. Ryan was being used too. Then Emily said something that destroyed the last piece of hope I still carried. Sometimes I wonder if we're going too far. For one brief second I thought she felt guilty. Then the man replied. 3 years ago you came to me with this plan. 3 years. Before Grace died. Before Ryan. Before everything. Emily had planned this for years. My daughter wasn't a victim. She was the architect. The mastermind. The stranger's name was Trevor Mason. A financial criminal already being watched by federal investigators. I immediately sent screenshots and recordings to Noah. His response came minutes later. Dad, this is bigger than we thought. Stay alive. I'm coming tomorrow. The next morning Dr. Russo arrived. I played the role perfectly. Confused. Slow. Harmless. He asked basic questions. I answered every one correctly. Yet he kept writing notes. I could see it. He wasn't evaluating me. He was pretending. The decision had already been made. After the interview ended, he met privately with Emily and Ryan. But Grace's portrait heard everything. The camera recorded every word. Clear signs of dementia, Russo said. He can be committed immediately. Then Ryan handed him an envelope. A lot of cash. The bribe. Captured on video. I immediately sent the footage to Noah. His reply came quickly. I'm arriving tomorrow at 6 a.m. The ambulance was scheduled for 7 a.m. 1 hour. That was all we needed. Just 1 hour. That night I copied every recording, every video, every confession, every crime. I made multiple backups. One stayed hidden in the attic. One stayed in my pocket. One went to Margaret. If anything happens, I told her, give this to Noah. She nodded. I will. I barely slept. At 5:30 a.m. I looked out the attic window. My stomach dropped. Vehicles were already arriving. They had changed the schedule. The ambulance was early. Very early. And Noah wasn't here yet. Then I heard breaking glass downstairs. They weren't waiting anymore. They were coming for me. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Fast. Determined. I grabbed the evidence drives. My heart hammered. The attic door burst open. Ryan entered with 2 large men behind him. Dad, Ryan said calmly, you need medical help. I backed away. I don't. Emily appeared behind them. Her face was cold. Completely cold. No love. No concern. Nothing. You're sick, Dad. You drugged me. She didn't even deny it. The men moved closer. I realized they were going to take me by force. Then suddenly, the front door exploded open downstairs. Voices shouted. FBI. The house erupted into chaos. Ryan spun around. Emily froze. The 2 men cursed. And then Noah appeared. Federal agents flooded the house behind him. Everything happened at once. Agents rushed upstairs. Handcuffs clicked. People shouted. Ryan dropped to his knees. Emily screamed. Trevor tried running through the back door. Agents caught him before he reached the fence. Dr. Russo was arrested later that morning. So was Victor Ashford. The entire operation collapsed within hours. The investigation lasted months. The evidence from Grace's portrait destroyed them. Every conversation, every confession, every plan. Recorded, saved, verified. Ryan eventually cooperated. He admitted everything. He had been greedy, manipulative, dishonest, but he truly hadn't known Emily planned to betray him too. Trevor turned on everyone, trying to save himself. It didn't work. Emily finally faced the evidence. The recordings, the documents, the years of planning. There was nowhere left to hide. Months later, I sat inside a courtroom. Emily stood before the judge. For the first time she looked small, broken, defeated. She glanced toward me. Tears filled her eyes. Dad. The word sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. I never meant for it to go this far. I looked at her quietly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I remembered the little girl in my studio. The child who believed broken things deserved second chances. The child who once hugged me and called me the best dad in the world. That girl felt very far away. I loved you, I said softly. I still do. Emily started crying. But love doesn't erase choices. She lowered her head and said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. A year later, my life looked different. The house was peaceful again. The cameras were gone. The pills were gone. The lies were gone. Margaret remained one of my closest friends. Noah visited often. Anne Grace's portrait still hung above the fireplace, exactly where it belonged. Sometimes I sat beneath it with a cup of coffee, watching sunlight move across the room, thinking about everything that happened, thinking about how close I came to losing everything. One afternoon Noah stopped by. We sat together in the living room. He looked up at Grace's portrait and smiled. You know, he said, Mom saved your life. I followed his gaze. He was right. In a way she had. I smiled softly. Yes, I said. She really did. And for the first time in a very long time, the house felt like home again.